I'm a petite 24-year-old female from the mainlands of the US, but this story takes place when I was 19 and living in Oahu, Hawaii. Now, the area I lived in was really ghetto, and being half white, half Guamanian but light skinned, I was the closest thing to a white person in the entire city I lived in. Whenever I told a local where I lived, they gave me a funny look like I was crazy or lying. This is relevant, I swear. So, because where I lived had absolutely no jobs and I was living with my Hawaiian and ghetto cousins, who were all careless, I had to take 2 buses for an hour to work both ways. The day this happened, I was covering for a co-worker who had a family emergency and it was a Sunday. I'd never worked a Sunday before and this shift was also 2 PM to 10:30 PM. No big deal. There's a bus stop right next to my work and they run until midnight, right? Wrong. Buses stop running at 10 PM on Sundays. So here I am standing at a bus stop alone for about 40 minutes. Businesses all around me are closing. It's getting darker and darker. I'm starting to panic. I'm completely alone, save for the occasional hooker and John wandering around looking for dark alleys and crystal meth. Hawaii is a fucking scary place at night. Don't believe the paradise hype. All of a sudden some homeless, toothless medhead pops out of nowhere and says, "A-hole." Bad word for white person. The bus no run this late. You fucked. Start walking your skinny ass home. I realise how fucked I am. My neighbourhood is seriously dangerous. So even if I did manage to walk home safely, there's no way I'm walking through Cam Park at night alone. It just isn't happening. I open my purse to check my wallet and find out that one of my cousins has indeed borrowed my last 50 bucks, but was nice enough to leave me enough for the bus that isn't coming. Oh, and my phone is dead, because there was some big shot general manager at my work today, so I wasn't allowed to charge it at my cashier station, and didn't trust it alone in the back room. As I'm internally having a fucking breakdown, a taxi cab pulls up in front of me, windows down. "Sorry dude, I'd love a ride, but I don't have any cash," I tell the driver. He looks at me, looks around and sighs. "Well, where do you need to go? I can't leave you here now that I know that. I'll end up seeing you on the 5 o'clock news." I tell him my neighbourhood and he does a double take, then shrugs and motions for me to get in the cab. I'm so happy I ignore the foreboding feeling I have in the back of my mind. I have only been living here for 2 months and my luck has been so shitty. Being robbed, jumped, tricked into stealing, you name it. It has happened to me and in such sneaky ways that I'm just like, yes, my fucking luck is changing. Nah, I was wrong. I hop in the back seats, give him my cross streets kinda near my house and tell him I'll get his number and pay him back later. Thank God I couldn't remember my address. Everything is normal for the first 20 minutes of the ride, then he starts asking me really weird questions. How old are you? Are you a virgin? Are you married? Do you carry a gun in that big purse? I lie and tell him yes on the gun, starting to feel creeped out. He stops talking after that for a bit until he notices he's almost out of gas. I look, he really is almost out. So we pull up at a gas station, but instead of parking next to a pump, he parks behind the buildings near the dumpster and says, "I'm going to pay for the gas and have a snack, then I'll take you back." I start saying something about needing to get home and he cuts me off. "You're riding for free, let me eat my fucking snack." I'm like, okay, and then I consider bolting when he comes back, but I have no idea where I am or how to get home. So instead, when he leaves, I reach into the front and unlock all the doors, just in case. It was an older model car, so I knew they'd stay locked unless he manually locked them again. He gets in the front seat, opens the middle console and pulls out a fucking meth pipe, a baggie of meth, a weed pipe, some weed and a lighter. "Let me have my snack, then we can go." He packs the meth pipe, takes a few hits and blows at me. Then he starts passing it to me. "I'm good for now, thanks." He looks pissed but puts it down, then grabs the weed pipe, repeats the process. I'm like 2 seconds from bolting when he throws the car into reverse and leaves without pumping any gas, now holding the meth pipe again and taking occasional hits. What the fuck? What the fuck? I'm freaking out. This dude is driving at like 70 miles an hour in a 30 lane, high as a fucking kite. The scenery starts to look familiar. I realise we're like 5 minutes from my house. I look over, the doors are still unlocked. Gotta think fast. His hand is slowly reaching for my knee and he's looking right at me, not at the road, and he's moaning like my fight is giving him the world's best orgasm. We're going to have fun tonight, baby. I'll teach you how to take dick. I tell him I'm not interested and he just laughs. Your phone is dead, who you gonna call? Ghostbusters? We're in Kalihi, girl. His hand is still on my leg. He takes a left, away from the street I live on. I realise how fucked I am, but I'm oddly calm. I change tactics. Problem is, if I don't check in, they'll come looking for me. I'm down to party, but I've got to check in first. I'm a little white girl. If I don't come home, they'll go check my work and my co-workers saw me leave with you. I don't want you to get into trouble. You know how white people are. I'm counting on the fact that he doesn't know my family isn't white. I'm counting on the fact that he's high enough not to know that I'm lying. And I'm counting on the fact that he doesn't know that all my co-workers were gone. He gives me a weird look, then hands me the meth pipe. Okay, holy girl, let's party. I hold the pipe up to my lips, wait for him to look towards the road and emulate what I saw him doing, turning it side to side while lighting it. I produce a tiny bit of smoke, don't inhale and immediately blow it out, hoping to God I don't get fucking high and I never have to explain why there is meth in my system if I do get high. You're fucking burning it. He gets pissed and grabs the not hot end of the pipe from me. Wasting my fucking dinner. I'll show you how to do it right. He takes a hard right and I realise he's headed for the cross streets that I told him about. My vision is a little fucked. Everything seems too bright and my adrenaline starts to feel almost euphoric. Fuck, am I high? The street I live on is wrapped round a little hill, easily a mile wide, and the cross streets are about a quarter of a mile from my house. As we get to the cross streets, he slows down, asking me what house it is. I lie and say I can't tell. It's too dark and I just moved there and all the houses look the same and I'm high. Please slow down. He obliges and slows to about 5 miles an hour and I make a break for it, swinging the door open and jumping out of a still moving car. I feel like I'm flying as I hit the dirt of the sidewalk and crab walk until I can get to my feet. Then I break out into a run. I probably look like a fucking lunatic, arms flailing, but I didn't give a fuck, nor did I bother looking back. The oldest cousin I live with was 39, male, built like a fucking Samoan. If I could just get back to my house, everything would be okay. That was all I could think. Plus, because he'd turned, we had actually passed my house, so he would have to drive to the next driveway and then turn around because it was a narrow road. Plus, he was at the bottom of the hill, so he wouldn't be able to see which house I went into. I didn't see headlights, so I figured that it was a good sign. Finally, I ran into my front yard, unlocked the front door, re-locked it, slid down to the floor, shaking a crying mess. I went to the front window and peeked out. No one on the street, no cabbie, no nothing. I was safe, I thought. I ended up not telling anyone what had happened because I always get the same lecture when something bad happened to me. You're acting like some stupid college white girl. If only you were smarter, yada yada yada. But everything seemed to be okay. I started working day shifts only. Avoided being alone or ever at that bus stop. Life went on. About a week later, I noticed a black car with tinted windows parked a few houses down from my house. I figured it was a neighbour's friend and just brushed it off. Only it was there the next day too. And the next day. I finally asked one of my cousin's 17-year-old sons if he had seen it. He said it showed up around 6 every day, which is when I would get home from work. I started feeling freaked out. Finally I broke down and told my giant cousin what had happened, leaving out the meth part. Surprisingly, he didn't lecture me. He felt bad that I felt I couldn't come to him for support and apologise for riding me so hard about being from the mainland, and he said he'd deal with the black car. The next day, my cousin's son picked me up from the bus stop near the house on his moped. We noticed a black car following us, but acted like we didn't. We pulled up on the house, and as soon as the black car parked, out came my Samoan-built, muscle-bound cousin with a metal baseball bat, taking practice swings as he approached the car. It reversed halfway down the street, hit a fence, jumped the curb, turned round in the yard, and was never seen again. This is nowhere near as bad as the majority of the stories I've read on here, but anyway. When this happened, I was 19 in London. My then boyfriend had called me a cab to go home from his place, which is about a 30-minute drive. His car was in the shop at the time. Before I got into the cab, he kissed me and told me to text him when I got home, in earshot of the driver. I get in and the man starts a friendly conversation about what I'm studying, nothing really unusual. But the conversation starts to get a bit personal when he tells me he's from Pakistan and a Muslim. He then asks me if I am too. I'm Iranian and my family is Muslim, but I don't practice it. But I just said yes, not to cause any awkwardness. He started to tell me I looked like a good Muslim girl and that he wanted to marry someone like me. I became increasingly uncomfortable and noted he'd deliberately turned on a street that would make the ride 15 minutes longer than the usual route. I text my boyfriend saying that the taxi driver is creepy, and he replies telling me to keep texting him until I get home so he knows I'm safe. The cab driver asked if that guy that I said goodbye to was my boyfriend, and I immediately said yes, hoping that would shut him up. He asked if we were serious and I said yes, and he continues saying he wants someone exactly like me. He then locks his car doors. I ask him why did he do that, and he says it's for safety. I swear my mouth was so dry I could hardly swallow. I was pretty scared, but I didn't say anything because he was still going towards my house and I didn't want to make him angry. He asked the most disgusting questions, like if I was still a virgin, or if I'd ever done stuff with a man. I refused to answer and kept frantically texting my boyfriend, but the douche must have either left his phone somewhere or fallen asleep. So much for being worried about my safety. When we finally got there, he overcharged me, told me that he had my number and that he was going to call me so we could meet. I said I won't because I'm in a relationship and my family wouldn't like it. He said that he could keep it a secret. I tried to open the door to get out, but the door was still locked and he laughed. He then stared at me intensely through the rearview mirror for what felt like a full minute. My stomach felt hollow and the street was quiet and dark, which made it feel even more creepy. He finally unlocked the door and I booked it to my front door and frantically knocked as I looked for my keys. My mum asked me why I looked so pale and I told her. She proceeds to call the cab company to make a complaint, and they admitted he'd done this before and promised that they would fire him and report it to the police. Mr. Cab Driver, I hope we never meet again, and no, I won't marry you. Background. I live in an economically poor foreign country but don't want to say where. Let's just say that my time zone is currently 16 hours ahead of the US East Coast. Many people, families, have cars, but the primary method of transportation is taxis. Basically, anyone can be a cab driver. I do believe they have some sort of license from the local government, but it's not like they are yellow cab companies or some sort of formal business structure where drivers have to maintain logs and reports, if that makes sense. Essentially, you just have to hail one of these cars and they'll take you where you need to go for 75 cents. There are no screens or panels to separate the front seats from the back seats, or there's no display of drivers' registration numbers. You get the picture. So last week was my birthday and I went out with some friends this weekend to a local place for some drinks. I live about 10 to 15 minutes away from my friend, so I took a separate taxi when it was time to go home to my apartment. On the main level of my apartment is the kitchen and a living space, while my bedroom and bathroom are downstairs. Too much information, but I really had to use the bathroom. I had a lot to drink. So as soon as I paid for the cab, I bolted inside and ran straight downstairs to the bathroom. While I was down there, I went ahead and showered, changed, went back upstairs to fix a snack and watch a movie. Finally, I decided to call it a night and go downstairs to get some sleep. I turned off the light and heard a scratching, rustling noise somewhere in my room. Honestly, my first thought was that I had a rat in my closet, which wouldn't be at all that uncommon. I decided to ignore it and I hoped and prayed that the rat would leave me be, but the noise continued. Finally, I realised I'd have to deal with this if I wanted to get any sleep. I turned on the light, noticed my closet door was cracked open, and see a pair of brown human eyes staring back at me. I screamed. I jumped out of bed and I just stood there yelling. The closet door burst open and then I saw the guy. It was the fucking taxi driver. He tried to run away. No, I'm 5'10" and people of this culture are small in stature, so I was a good 6 inches taller than this guy. I was semi-drunk and royally angry, so I grabbed his shirt, but it ripped and he got away. My head was spinning, but I realised that as I ran in earlier to use the bathroom, I didn't lock the door behind me. Before you judge me for this, I understand that I live in a country with a very different culture than the US, and this is not an abnormal thing to do. I typically only lock my door before I go to bed. This guy had snuck in behind me and went downstairs to hide in my bedroom closet while I was in the bathroom. I spoke to the police, who were incredibly incompetent and inefficient, but also overworked because a gruesome murder recently occurred here, which is very rare and outside their realm of expertise. They said they can't do anything without a license plate number, and I couldn't even begin to tell you what that number was, as I never walked behind the car. All I remember was the car colour and the general model, but since people's personal vehicles are used as taxis there are who knows how many cars of that colour or model. I've stayed with friends for the past few nights, and I'm certainly a little traumatised. I'm also going to be hyper vigilant about locking my doors. I'm hopeful this was an isolated incident. I've lived in this country for over a year and have never felt unsafe. And the local people are friendly. Nevertheless, creepy taxi driver, let's not meet again.